Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. More headwinds in our prestigious universities. This is going to shock you, Dr. Lopkin. Hold on to your seat. The DEI chief at Harvard is basically coming under scrutiny for plagiarism. Wow. Shazam, Shazam. Your
Yeah,
thoughts,
th-
Dr. Lopkin?
this is absolutely amazing. It just shows how far the standards have fallen. If you're a student at Harvard and you're caught plagiarizing, you're expelled, you're thrown out. And yet, they're hiring people who over and over again are being caught for plagiarism. We saw the Harvard president, now the DEI officer. We saw faked results coming out of Dana Farber, which is affiliated with Harvard Medical School. Why would you go to Harvard at this point? There doesn't seem to be any benefit except for mountains and mountains of debt.
I think you have a real no. 10 years ago, that would be, flippant point, like kind of to get a little laugh, a chuckle, whatever. You have, I give him a high credibility rating. Mike Rowe he talked about the screws of higher education, especially in prestigious universities, are turning. He even talks the fact that fewer people and applications are way down, and some people are actually taking their degrees off the wall. I mean, the day was when you had a Harvard degree, you might have a light shining on it in your office. Now people are not all that excited about it. Your thoughts?
No, not at all. I mean, I certainly wouldn't brag about going to Harvard at this point. There's nothing left to brag about. And it's not just Harvard. Our higher education institutions have completely collapsed. They have
Yes,
sold
they have.
out. And I think that's the key word there is sold. It's all about the endowment, it's all about money. If you have enough money, you can buy the credibility, except now they've gone too far and that credibility can't be bought anymore because they don't have any to sell.
I would agree with that. And I have a little quiz for you, Dr. Lopkin, being Dr. Lopkin. What percentage of Harvard students have A or A plus averages? I'll tell you,
The
95. Boy, oh boy. 95.
95% of I find that hard to believe. That's
It's a fact.
that's giving away A's like in
Yeah,
Cracker Jack boxes.
it's
There is no
pretty much.
way, yeah, there is no way that 95% of the student body are earning A's.
Oh, there's no doubt about
Yeah.
that, but it's basically pay to play. You get in, and once you're in the club, and everyone gets
Yep.
a trophy. And why would you hire someone in that kind of a situation? Getting back to Mike Rowe, it's a joke. 95. What are you, nuts?
You wouldn't. And in fact, fewer and fewer corporations are hiring them. Walmart just announced a store manager between salary, stock options, and bonuses can make up to $400,000 a year with no college degree.
It is a trend. We talked about this even in terrestrial radio. It's just, and I thought you had a great point. I've talked about it to many people about the whole smorgasbord of skill sets. If I'm in a hiring position, I'm going to have to say I'm thinking more positively about that person who put together a portfolio of usable skills versus some entitled son of a bitch that's more worried about Palestinian rights and has a 95 average at Harvard. There you go.
Yeah, no, if I'm hiring, give me a high school graduate who's hungry and willing to work. I'll take that over a Harvard graduate any day of the week.
Especially if that high school graduate had the initiative on their own to seek out skills from online sources from community colleges to get skills in, I don't know, STEM or what have it, put together. I'm
Yes.
very impressed with that person. I don't give a shit about friggin' art history. What the hell do I care about that? That's
No,
really nice. Do it on your own time.
absolutely. I always look for STEM knowledge when you're putting things together, when you're putting together operations plans, even marketing plans. You need to know how things work. And guess what? Chemistry, physics, and engineering teach you more than any MBA did, that anything they're teaching at Harvard does. So yeah, I would rather somebody research, learn, teach themselves how to code. That right now is the biggest thing that will impress, is that if you can code, you can basically figure things out and get work done. And if you've done it
100%.
and if you've done it yourself, which quite frankly, I'll be real honest, the local school system, they can't teach programming to save their lives. Every kid I know that learned programming taught themselves.
Yeah, it's very doable, by the way. Yes, I actually taught myself programming, by the way.
As
But
did I.
anyway, there you go. And yeah, so I think that is extremely interesting. And again, I think they're going to have to adjust or do something about it. I mean, it's just the way it's going to be. And you look at the whole thing. We were talking about the DEI, the chief of DEI at Harvard being scrutinized. It's really interesting. I forgot his name. He's really brilliant. It just escapes me at the time. He was talking about shocking. Like, what percentage of a college tuition goes for DEI and all this other kind of diversity programs and inclusion? It's astonishing. It's like 25%. It's insane. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely ludicrous. The fact of the matter is, DEI programs. Now, I will give them credit where credit is due. The intent of the original DEI programs was good. It was to spread opportunity. The implementation of these DEI programs has been abysmal. All it has done is switch what group you're discriminating against. It really is. We talked about this on a previous podcast. DEI has really come to stand for discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination. And it has nothing to do with spreading opportunity anymore.
No, but it could spread some danger. Boeing, a big proponent of DEI hiring, uh, missing tires, doors falling off. I mean, and then also, I think it was, what is it? What airline? I think it might be United. No, it isn't. It's Delta. Basically, supercharging DEI hires can be concerning when it's applied to the real world. Is my point.
It's very concerning. And we're seeing the results over and over again, because in order to meet DEI goals, not just schools, but companies that are pushing for this are hiring less qualified people. And let's be very clear about this. I am not saying that African Americans or Hispanic workers are less qualified. I am saying that companies are taking a shortcut to meet DEI goals and not spending the time to find the qualified workers. And they're just going, oh, okay, this person meets our goals. It doesn't matter if they're qualified for the position or not. And in fact,
I actually believe I actually believe it's detrimental to minority groups because I believe that by lowering standards, you're lowering and minimizing their long-term success potential. How does that sound?
oh,
And it
absolutely.
is very
And
racist. Instead of saying that blacks and Hispanics can which they can meet any standard, you're saying, well, maybe you're not good enough. Let's lower everything. That's the old. And you said that Charles Payne, the guy that you used to work with,
Yes.
he's now on Fox Business. He said that he never encountered more racism than he did in liberal cities like New York. Not by saying things like the N word, but being patronizing. That truly
Yes.
is racism. Oh, don't worry, Charles, you can't do it. We'll make it a little better for you. It's
Exactly.
insulting.
And the fact of the matter is, as bad as this is for the people who are suffering the racism, the overall effect is a negative for the entire community, the entire, the country as a whole. We are now seeing, because of their focus on DEI and the fact that people don't want to join the military, the US Navy has once again lowered their standards for recruits. Okay, really, these are the folks on the front lines of protecting our liberty. Do you want to be lowering standards?
Well, I think the military wokeism, just like it does companies like Target, is destroying, is rotting our military. Uh, any kind of levers that would cause someone who's an achiever, who's patriotic, who wants to, help their country, you're taking. That's why recruitment applications are plummeting, because who wants to join a loser organization?
It's
Because that's what you're making it.
it's true. And again, we're seeing situations where making it easier for people and lowering the standards is actually becoming dangerous. It wasn't that long ago, the New York Fire Department, in order to attract more women candidates, lowered the physical fitness requirements. Now, you know what? If I'm in a skyscraper in New York and it's burning, I want that fire person to be able to lift me over their shoulder and get me out of there. I don't want somebody who's not capable of lifting somebody in a rescue.
I would absolutely agree. And I'll just have one final thought, and I like your comment on this. I also think it actually fosters more racism than it helps, because instead of, let's say, you're seeing a doctor and it's 1980 and it's an African American doctor, you're thinking, whoa, this person's pretty impressive, which I'm sure they were. All the obstacles they had to overcome. And now you're thinking, gee, I mean, was it a DEI, situation? You question someone's credentials and ability. I'm sorry, you just do.
Well, at this point, you'd be right to question the
There
credentials.
you go.
The AMA has actually started coming out against medical schools who are pushing DEI because they are graduating physicians that are not qualified. I mean, this is the
I
AMA
would
saying, no, you know what? We have to stop this. We need to focus on quality education and making sure doctors can actually serve their patients. Oh, what a concept. No,
I
DE,
really believe that
DEI,
DEI is dead on arrival.
I,
It's one of those things that companies are running from it. The only people that are still organizations still doing it is obviously the government, led by Uncle Joe, or not really led by
well, you
Uncle
know what
Joe.
though? I don't think it is, because we've seen this over the last several years. First, it was CRT. Then it was ESG. Now it's DEI. So now that DEI is failing, honestly, I think they're just going to dress it up under another set of initials and try to recycle it again.
I would 150% agree with you. Do you know why? All these all these letter-based initiatives, it's a cottage industry. It's You can make a fortune on this shit
Oh,
as a
absolutely.
consultant.
Absolutely. There are consultants making a fortune pushing
A fortune.
DEI programs on schools, on businesses. And you know what? Not one of them is worth a damn. These DEI programs are complete failures because, again, Their focus is shifting the group that is discriminated against. And right now, the groups that are being discriminated against most, thanks to these DEI initiatives, are Asians
Are
and
Asians.
Jews.
There you go. Absolutely 100% correct. Um, but someone that I think, two people that I think do qualify and need DEI reemployment eventually, hopefully, is Biden and Kamala. But Biden is now going to visit East Palestine uh, about a year after the disaster. I'm a little surprised because I wouldn't do it if I was one of his advisors. I would say, first of all, you're going to probably get heckled. What are you doing a year later? And I'd be a little cautious about putting him into a situation. He could go to maybe a food line. Oh, screw that up. But it's not a national event. Okay, there's going to be every press there. And there's a 50-50 shot that he's going to screw it up. He might confuse it with Palestine, I should say. No, there's a real possibility. You're talking about
Un-
Hamas or something. I don't know.
Unfortunately, there is a possibility. It's not even funny anymore. No, I think it's going to be an abject disaster for him.
Disaster.
He's going to be heckled. He was heckled on the streets of Allentown. So going to East Palestine, Ohio, where he literally ignored a massive tragedy, now showing up a year later, the people there, first of all, they weren't Biden supporters to begin with. Now they're going to let him have it, and the cameras are going to be rolling. However, since so many of those cameras will belong to liberal media, I think they will whitewash that, make it
And
look good.
selectively edit.
But yeah, they'll selectively edit out the heckles, the gaffes. But I mean,
Do you think he might put his hard? Do you think he might put the hard hat on backwards?
he'll put the
There you
hard
go.
hat on backwards. He'll spout absolute gibberish. It is That's something else that's amazing. I can't wait for Trump to put together his campaign commercial that is
Oh
just
God.
a series of Joe Biden speeches where he's saying abject nonsense and making up words.
Can I tell you what my ad would be if I was in part of his campaign team? I would basically have him doing all those gaffes and talking about stuff I have no idea what you're talking about, and just have don't comment. Just have Joe Biden 2024.
Yeah,
Leave it like that. That would be perfect. Don't edit. You don't have to edit. Sometimes pictures speak louder than words. Just end it. Joe Biden 2024.
and you don't even have to just leave it at him. You can edit in Kamala's frequent word salads. The two of them are not mentally competent. Now,
No, not at all.
With Biden, it's dementia. It is very clear. He was walking,
Yes.
I don't remember if it was yesterday or Monday, but he was walking to Marine One. There were reporters waiting there. And if you just looked at how he walked, you went, this is not a healthy man. This is not a man that has his faculties. With Kamala Harris, it's just abject stupidity. I mean, as far
She's
as
just
I know,
stupid. Yes.
she's perfectly healthy. She's just not capable of doing the job.
Yeah, and she's actually no one's really interested in what she has to say. She was on a CNN show. I don't know who was the moderator, but she got an amazing 332,000 views. I mean, reruns of the Three Stooges probably get 150.
Yeah,
Not
but
very impressive.
in her defense, that might be a high watermark for CNN at this point.
Good point, Doctor. You are correct. Well, speaking of, again, just continuing the political theme here. Last week, there was a poll that had Trump up 53-47 nationally. However, there's some more other thing that Biden's starting to get some new momentum. Your thoughts? It's all early. It really doesn't mean anything. I get it, but do you think he's going to get more momentum? And do you think the Democrats are doing a good job by spinning the border crisis, by spinning it away from a Biden Democratic failure to a Republican failure? A lot there, but go to it.
Yeah, I do believe Biden will pick up some steam, especially now that it's very clear Trump is going to be the nominee, because there is still a huge anti Trump sentiment. And within the Democratic Party, there's complete Trump derangement syndrome.
Arrangement, yes.
But what really frightens me is the abject lies that people are believing. Biden said the other day, well, if they would give me the power, I would shut the border down right now.
Yeah.
He has the power. The laws are in place for him to fix the problem. Not only has he chosen not to do it, he issued, I believe it was 95 executive orders in his first 100 days, all dedicated to tearing down what Trump had put in place. The
Mm-hmm.
same laws Obama, who was referred to as the deporter in chief, Obama was able to keep the border secure using the same laws. So Biden is absolutely lying about the fact that he needs
He's
Congress to
good at that.
pass new
He's been good
laws.
at that. He's been good at that. He doesn't
And
know fact from fiction. He never has.
and
Beyond the dementia.
and
40 years ago.
it's not just the politicians. It is the media themselves. I was watching uh just last night on Fox, Jessica Tarlaw
Oh God.
was talking about, well, she had watched Newt Gingrich talking, and he was saying that the Republicans have gone off the rail. They need to work together and pass this. Meanwhile, I'm on my iPad, I'm looking at the footage of Newt Gingrich, and he was saying the exact opposite of what she was saying. He was saying that the Republicans were going off the rail if they thought they could support the border deal. So
I'm sorry, dear Jessica I will just real interject one thing. I have no idea how she's on the show. I also have a problem with her because she's Jewish and she spouts the liberal ideology that can be the death knell to Jews and to Israel. So I have problems with her on two areas. First of all, I think she sucks, and I have no idea how she got the job. Probably daddy got her the job or something like that. She seems like a real entitled piece of shit. And second of all, her ideology, especially being Jewish, is more than eyebrow raising.
Yeah, it's like, but she was just telling abject lies on the air. And, with her, at least there's other members of the show that will call her out on it. When you have Joy Reid spouting these lies, nobody even questions her. And now we just saw Joy Reid apparently isn't a big Biden supporter, but
no, apparently not.
You wouldn't know that from her coverage on the air. She goes out of her way, but she was caught on a hot mic dropping the F-bomb that Biden's going to start World War III.
Well, that's probably one of the few things I might actually agree with her on.
She may be right. She may be right about that. But it basically shows that she is so deranged that she knows how bad Biden is, and she's still pushing his agenda over the Republicans, even though she obviously doesn't believe he's doing a good job, because she wouldn't have dropped the F-bomb if she believed it.
Yeah, but didn't we talk about that years ago, that the Democrats, it's all about power, F the country? They knew 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, that Biden was not capable of the job. But did they really give a shit? No. But they looked over the field and they know they couldn't win with all the other numbnuts. So it was Uncle Joe, and they branded him and positioned him to be moderate Joe, not so much.
No, they knew they knew he wasn't capable even before he decided to run, because, and I've mentioned this on the air before, I have sources in several Democratic state committees. And when he announced he was running, they told me point blank they knew he was suffering from dementia. They couldn't believe the National Committee was going to back him and allow him to run because he was not capable. So the Democrats knew
True.
he had dementia when he announced he was going to run. And they decided to put him up anyway as their last great hope to regain power.
100% correct. But, in the whole area of gaining power, we talked about this last week about the prosecutions and the persecutions of Donald Trump and how they're losing steam. But I did read a couple articles, one in particular, that's saying that if he actually is convicted, that it will have a huge impact on swing state voters. The only trouble with that, I don't think, especially with delays in Georgia. I really don't think at this point that the trials are going to move quick enough for him to be found or convicted before the election. Your thoughts?
Yes, it would make a big difference. A number of polls have come out and said this, that if he was convicted of a crime, people will, stop supporting him. The problem is most of these cases, one, are built on sand. They're collapsing one after the other. Most of the cases that he's involved in are civil cases. Nobody seems to care about those.
Even the 83 million, no one gives. And how do you get 83 million? What are you
Well,
nuts?
a jury can award anything, especially since they did it for punitive damages. Realistically, though, she's never going to see that money because, first of
No,
all, it's going to be appealed. And almost always, appeals courts lower these ridiculous amounts.
of course.
Doesn't matter what the case is. The appeals courts look at these and go, all right, that's just ridiculous. We're lowering the amounts. But, and what most people don't realize is that, again, this is a civil case. This was not a criminal case. Civil courts have no mechanisms in place to force a defendant who has been found to owe money to actually pay it. So
Just
by
look at
the
OJ.
Right. So by the time the appeals process is over, by the time all of these cases go, it's going to be years before she sees a dime, if she ever sees anything. So people don't
Yeah,
care
she's
about that.
celebrating too early on MSNBC. She was talking about buying a house for Rachel. There you go.
Yeah, she's not going to get a dime for, I'm going to guess conservatively, 8 to 10 years if she sees anything. The criminal
100%.
the criminal
Now,
cases, which could be a problem for Trump, though, again, most of these cases, they just don't have the legs. And now you're seeing, even in Illinois went, you know what? We don't have any evidence that he actually committed insurrection. We know the Supreme Court is going to find that there's no evidence that he committed insurrection because he hasn't even been charged with it, never mind found guilty. So they're like, nope, we're going to leave him on the ballot. So
yes, there's, they, yeah,
it's
and
starting
even
to
with
get,
Colorado as well.
yeah, it's getting to the point where they're going, yeah, there's nothing to these criminal attempts to stop him.
My prediction: if these blow apart, how do you like this? What do you think of this concept? If they blow apart, I'm talking to the criminal, not the
Yeah.
civil. If the criminal blows apart, positive Trump, conviction, negative Trump. What do you think of that? Negative one, that's an easy one. You don't have to even don't even address that. But if they blow up, I think it's advantage Trump. Your thoughts?
Oh, yes. If the criminal cases fall apart, like it looks like in Georgia, it's already fallen apart. It's going to be a huge benefit for Trump because he's then going to go out, and he's already been doing this, and he is going to go, look, you see, they tried these politically based prosecutions, they failed because they don't want me on the ballot. They are afraid. And
100%.
and you know, you
Yes.
do have to ask because you have these Democrats across the country trying to keep Trump off the ballot, using insurrection or whatever. But you also have Democrats around the country suing to keep no labels off the ballot as a third party. Well, there's no danger from insurrection from no labels. They haven't even listed a candidate yet. Why? You have to ask, why are the Democrats so scared to have actual candidates on the ballot? What is it that's frightening them? And I think,
Because
yeah,
they don't want to be juxtaposed between numbnuts and someone that's sane.
yes, they do not want you to vote, to be able to vote. They want to be able to control the process. And it is absolutely ridiculous. As far as I'm concerned, if you can get the signatures to get on the ballot, you deserve to be on the ballot. If you're not capable of doing the jobs, the voters should be able to figure that out, although clearly they weren't with Biden.
No, not at all. Well, speaking of the theater of the bizarre, we have Cori Bush. She's now being investigated by the Department of Justice. And but by the way, when you look at an a rabid anti-Semite, by the way, not the brightest bulb in the Christmas tree. Neither is Representative Omar, who basically gave a speech to Somalians saying that her job is to put Somalia first. Not and Cruz of Texas basically called for her removal from and deportation. How do you like that? Not that that's going to happen, but two geniuses. Your comment?
Yeah, I mean,
And has the squad? Has the wait one real quick? Has the squad's day in the sunset, or I should say, in the spotlight? Is it coming to a quick end? Rhetorical question.
well, it wasn't quick, but yes, the squad has lost credibility.
One.
The idea that any U.S. representative would put a foreign power above us is, well, quite frankly, it's treason. But the idea
Yes.
that she is there for Somalis ahead of Americans, it's like, no, that is ridiculous. And in fact, she now has another primary challenge. I don't
Yep.
remember the guy's name, but he was previously running for Senate and said, "No, we have to get her out of there." It's another Democrat who said, "We have to get Omar out of office," and changed from running for Senate to running against her because she is so damaging to the Democratic Party. With Cori Bush,
Yes.
Cori Bush, this was just
Genius.
amazing. Spent almost $700,000 on security while campaigning to defund the police. So
A genius.
she wanted her security, but she doesn't want you to have security. But she gave so much of this money to her husband to protect her. Her husband is not licensed in security either in their home state or in Washington D.C. So he's certainly not qualified to do this. And then she had the gall to blame right-wing organizations for coming after her.
Why not?
That's why she's being investigated. She's being investigated by the Department of Justice, which is controlled by the Biden administration. She's being investigated by the Federal Election Commission, which is controlled by the Biden administration. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination you could call Biden right wing.
I don't think so. No, I think that'd be a little bit of a stretch. But speaking of a stretch, I don't think it's a stretch to point to the fact that uh, Obama, Democrats have basically emboldened Iran, both economically and on the world stage. And Blinken has said, Secretary of State said, that the Middle East has never been in a more dangerous situation than 1973 with the Yom Kippur
Yep.
War. Um, Another great job of geopolitical maneuvering by the Biden administration, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Well, remember, it was late September, early October, before the Hamas attack, that they came out and said the Middle East has never been quieter.
Yeah,
So,
there you go. Excellent.
so clearly our administration has no clue what's going on in the Middle East.
Well,
Biden
wait,
keeps
real
saying,
quick. You have no clue when you have what's his name, the Secretary of Defense, basically AOL for 3 weeks, and no one even knew he was gone.
yeah, Lloyd Austin went into the
Yeah,
hospital,
there you go.
didn't bother telling anybody. It was
A genius.
absolutely amazing. They don't know where the Secretary of Defense is, so it really shouldn't come as a surprise that they don't know what's going on in the Middle East. But what kills me is the fact that they keep saying, well, we don't want to expand the war. We don't want a wider war. There have been over 170 attacks on U.S. troops in Iraq, in Syria, in Jordan,
Jordan.
just since October. Guess what? We're at war. The war has spread past the Gaza Strip.
The
It's
war
time.
has come to us, genius.
Yeah, it is time to accept the fact that, yes, because we did nothing, we are at war. And it's time that we actually responded financially. Iran needs to be cut off from the international monetary
Of
supply.
course.
Militarily, we don't have to send troops into Iran. And in fact, we shouldn't, because that does not go well. It hasn't since Jimmy Carter tried to do it back in the 70s. But we can bomb the hell out of their oil facilities and keep them from selling it.
I would agree. It's like FDR after Pearl Harbor saying, "Well, we need one more clear signal that Japan is our adversary." It's just it's cowardice, and it's emboldening Iran and other adversaries because they look at the U.S. is getting bitch slapped, and they don't do shit. It's a joke. No, it's pathetic. But
It's
yes, and it was Obama that built up Iran both technologically, a la the drone landing, and financially. You have to be smoking hot or be as dumb as John Kerry to engage in the Iran nuclear deal. There's fifth graders that would have more common sense than that.
It is absolutely ridiculous. And this is a global problem. It's not just that the US has not held Iran responsible and, in fact, has emboldened them, but now we have found out that members of the United Nations were involved in the Hamas attack. They provided Hamas with ammunition. They actually invaded Israeli homes and settlements. These are employees of the United Nations who didn't simply state an opinion, they took part in an act of terror. Finally, the US, the UK,
Finally,
Canada, a number of other of our European allies have pulled funding from this agency. But Biden is saying, well, we're going to hold off on pulling more funding from them. Let's see what their investigation says. They're letting them investigate themselves and not
it's
saying,
beautiful.
no, you know what? We're pulling the plug on your funding.
Yeah, the foreign policy of the Biden administration makes Jimmy Carter look like Winston Churchill, a complete embarrassment and
Well,
joke. And speaking of the United Nations, what you were talking about, the UN chief just happened to skip a Holocaust event that has been attended for decades, not by coincidence, by
yeah,
the way.
the UN, their actions have been anti-Semitic. They've clearly been overrun with anti-Semites, and it is time the U.S. stops funding this. You need to say, no, the UN is supposed to be a neutral arbiter. You are there to keep the peace, not to encourage attacks on Jews. And yet, Biden has done nothing. And I mean, to be fair, we knew this going in. He has, to take the Secretary of Defense's words, Obama's secretary, Joe Biden has been on the wrong side of every foreign policy decision for 50 years. He's just keeping his record going.
He's got an unbroken record, and he's always been the boy genius, and now he's the boy genius with dementia. Our last little topic, Dr. Lopkin, we had the first nitrogen execution in the United States. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this took place in Alabama. It is a new form of capital punishment. I don't know enough of the details of how it worked. I mean, the nitrogen was pumped into this guy for, I believe, 30 minutes. That seems to be an
That's a
awfully
little
long,
long.
yeah, that's an awfully long time to take to kill somebody.
Yes.
Um, I believe the way it's done is more humane because you basically, the person being killed just essentially falls asleep because of oxygen deprivation. And I think that's why it actually takes half an hour, because you're not suffocating them. You're just removing the oxygen slowly so that, they fall asleep and then die. But really, I don't know that. I mean, I find it hysterical when people yell, "Well, it's an inhumane way to kill somebody." You're killing them,
So is stabbing.
really, right? You're killing somebody. They didn't kill people in any more of a humane way. And I personally, I think the faster you kill them, the more humane it is. But
Yes.
we'll see where this goes. Right now, there doesn't seem to be a big movement to use this method, but we'll see what happens.
I think it was overcomplicating an issue. You can't have a lethal injection because you can't do it with this particular person. How about, duh, a firing squad? There you go, genius.
Yeah, I mean,
Tried and true. Why
we
reinvent the wheel? There you go.
we used the firing squad for quite a long time. We've used hangings for quite a long time. I think the key though is that anti-death penalty advocates look at these things and they go, well, they're far too gruesome. Shooting somebody, hanging them. So this at least allows the people who are doing this to say, yes, it's a more humane death. We're taking that into consideration. And also there is a factor that, you know, when we used hangings, I'm sure most of our listeners are familiar with the image of the hangman wearing the hood. The reason for wearing that hood is so the person doing the hanging could not be identified for retaliation. You really can't do that with a firing squad. In fact, that's why it was a firing squad, because you never knew who it was that actually killed the person. So this is another way that they can keep the person anonymous so that friends of the person being killed cannot, try retribution and revenge.
I would agree. Well, Dr. Lotkin, another great edition of Carnivore Bites. And our listeners, as we've always said, can participate in the process if they'd like, can't they?
Yes, let us know what you're thinking. You can catch us at the Carnivore Radio Facebook page, message us there. or go to xvadio.com/connect and let us know what you're thinking. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
I thank you, Dr. Lopkin, and we'll get together again next week.
We'll see you then.